Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to make a tier list of all of the specializations in the finals. So, first up, we have the goo gun. That's going to go in B, and the reason for that is simply because you have alternatives. You have the goo grenades and you have the goo barrels, which both do the same thing. So you can put this on if you want, and you know, it's going to help delay your enemy, it's going to help reinforce whatever area you're trying to defend. But there are other things that get the job done. Whereas with the mesh shield and charge and slam, there aren't, so you're probably going to be better off going with something else, but you can pick this if you want, it's not awful. So, mesh shield comes next, and this is pretty good. It's especially useful if you have a coordinated team. If you don't have a coordinated team, then you just kind of have to hope your teammates have good game sense, and that when they see you using this, you know, they know to shoot through it. But if you have a coordinated team and you're on comms, then this becomes more useful. You can tell them you're going to use it, you can use it, and then they can shoot through it and make the most out of it. So you kind of need to have a coordinated team to make the most out of this. But even if you don't, it can just be good for defending yourself. It's good for defending the cash out and just not letting anyone really get close to you or do any damage to you. And it's also good at, you know, pushing across a zip line with two teammates behind you and you just block the whole way so people can't really hit you. It's got both offensive and defensive capabilities, which makes it quite strong. It also has a giant health bar, which always helps as well. So, then we have the charge and slam. I'm also going to put this in A, and the reason for that is because you can bump enemies out of areas or also off the map in the right situation, which can just be hilarious. It does do damage. If you run into a light that's kind of low, you can just kill them. It's good at finishing people off sometimes, and it's obviously especially useful at destroying buildings. It can also be used as just a quick movement buff though. The cooldown on this thing is really fast, so if you're just running and you want to just get from point A to point B, you can just use this to go a bit faster for a couple of seconds, and it does give you a pretty noticeable movement buff for a few seconds. So it is quite useful if you want to make your heavy just a bit faster as well. So all around, just not a bad choice at all. So now we move on to the medium stuff, and we have the Guardian Turret. This is going to go in B, I think. And that's because it just doesn't really do enough damage, and it's just kind of more of a distraction than anything else. It's like a slightly more distracting APS turret. It's very rare you'll get a kill with this, and it doesn't have the most health either. It is quite easy to destroy, especially if you're just focusing on destroying it. It goes away quite quickly, and it's got a pretty long cooldown as well for how much damage it does and how quickly it gets destroyed. So I think it's probably not the best pick, and for that reason it's going to stay in B. Recon Senses. This is going to go in B or C. I think it's going to go in B, actually. You know, you can use this if you want. It's probably not great, especially because the medium does also just have access to the sonar grenades, right? And that's going to help your whole team out, whereas with the Recon Senses, you're the only one that can see the enemies. And with the sonar grenades, your whole team can see the enemies when you throw the sonar grenades. So I mean, it can be useful. This is probably going to be like super low B, or I might put it in C at some point, but you can use it if you really want to, but you're probably just going to be better off using the Guardian Turret or the Healing Beam. Which brings us to the Healing Beam. I'm not sure if this is S tier or if it's in A tier, but it is pretty good. I might just leave it in S tier for the moment, and I might drop down later on to super high A. But yeah, the Healing Beam is very strong, especially when you pair it with the defibrillator. It takes a lot of healing for it to start overheating, so you can use it for a long time without having it to rest. And if you're fighting a team and you get someone low, and then they just get healed, that's super annoying in a fight. So this thing is definitely quite strong. Again, it's made even stronger by pairing it with the defibrillator, because when you defibrillate someone, they spawn with half health, and you could just heal them back to full and get them straight back into the fight. So yeah, this is definitely very powerful. It also has like no cooldown. I think it's one of the few things on this list that like just doesn't have a cooldown. I'm going to skip the Evasive Dash for the moment, and I'm going to start with the Cloaking Device. Cloaking Device is going to go in A. It's going to go in very high A, it's not going to go in S, it's going to go in very high A, and the reason for that is it's super audible, right? When you activate it, while it's active, and when you deactivate it, they all make very audible noises. So when that's happening, people around you are obviously going to know it's happening. They're going to hear it. And also, it doesn't actually make you invisible. It makes you hard to spot, but you're not completely invisible. So if you're playing against someone that's really, really good and that's played a lot and they're super experienced, they can spot you from a good distance away, and people that aren't so experienced are going to be able to spot you at the closer ranges still. But what this excels at is just, it causes a short delay that gives you enough time to get the jump on someone. Or if you're kind of far away, you can just slip by completely unnoticed. It just kind of depends on how good your opponents are and how effective this is. But even if your opponents are really, really good experienced players, this can still be quite powerful. It's definitely very, very useful. Again, I'm going to skip the Evasive Dash and we're going to get to the Grappling Hook. And I think that's going to be just behind the Cloaking Device. This thing is good. It's very, very, very good for movement. If you use it, you're basically like Pathfinder from Apex. It can move you around very, very quickly. And also it's got a very short cooldown. So if you're someone that just really wants to have super mega fast movement, then this is probably going to be for you. And again, it's also got a very, very fast cooldown, so you can be using it pretty quickly. And that's pretty much all there is to this one. It's quite a simple item. You just use it, you grapple, and you can do some fast movement. It's good for getting into situations and for getting out of situations. And then we've got the Evasive Dash, and I think that's going to be after the Cloaking Device and before the Grappling Hook. I might actually, you know what, I might put the Grappling Hook after the Mesh Shield, and I might put the Evasive Dash after the Mesh Shield as well, because the Mesh Shield is very, very strong. So, the Evasive Dash, you have 3 of them, so you're basically Tracer from Overwatch, that's what this is very similar to. And if you're good, and you can dash and also shoot your enemy at the same time, this can be super, super powerful. And you can also do some cool movement tricks with it, like if you aim upwards, you'll also dash upwards a bit, so you can use it to like jump out a window on the 2nd floor, and then dash and get up to the window on the 3rd floor. So if you're very good and familiar with the movement, then you can do that, which can be useful as well. I think this requires a higher skill level to use consistently than the Cloaking Device or the Grappling Hook. So for that reason, I'm actually going to put the Grappling Hook in front of it. Like, you need to be quite good at keeping your aim very on track while you're dashing, and then also you need to know how to do the movement stuff with it. So I'm going to put the Cloaking Device, the Mesh Shield, and the Grappling Hook just a little bit higher up the list, because I think it is just a tiny bit harder to use. You know what, I think the Goo Gun is going to go into Seed here, and that's just because you have access to Goo Grenades, which isn't a specialization, and then you have access to the Goo Barrels, which isn't a specialization, and that also isn't a gadget. And I think just because both of those things are in the game, it makes the Goo Gun a lot less worthwhile, and you're probably just going to be better off going with the Mesh Shield or the Charge and Slam. I think it's probably not going to be great to go with this one, but you can if you want, but I think I'm just going to pop it down and see, because I don't think it's quite on the same level as the Guardian Turret and Recon Senses, which can have their moments as well. So yeah, I think I'm happy with that. It is worth noting that all of this stuff is good in the right situation, and a lot of this stuff is going to be better depending on what you pair it with, right? So, like, the best example I can think of is Defibrillator and Healing Beam are going to pair together very, very well. Maybe the Mesh Shield and the Dome Shield are going to pair together quite well, just fully defense mode, that would go quite well together. Maybe the Guardian Turret and the APS Turret, so you've got 2 extra things you have to take out just to super distract enemies. Charge and Slam, and maybe like the Sledgehammer or something to get right up in people's faces, bump them away a little bit, kind of confuse them, then hit them with a Sledgehammer and get an insta-kill. You know, you can pair all of this stuff with the rest of your kit, and that kind of depends on its effectiveness, and that's also just your play style, however you want to play it. So all of this stuff can be useful, it can all be made to work, but this is just a tier list of how useful they're going to be in most of your encounters. So for the Healing Beam, people are always going to take damage, and they're always going to need to be healed a little bit, and so that's always going to help out. Cloaking Device, there are always going to be enemies, and you can always try and hide yourself from them, etc. Yeah, so there you go. I think I'm happy to leave that tier list there. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to be it for this video. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Farewell.